Hello everyone, welcome to a new video. Today, as you may have seen already from the title, I am going to read for you. This is my second time filming this video. The first time was filmed and edited. I read a completely different book. But apparently universe does not want me to share that with you. So it's not happening. Instead, I am going to go for a different book, for a slightly lighter mood, and hopefully this time around the universe will agree. Perhaps I was sharing too many secrets in last video. Who knows? Anyway, as you can see, I'm still rocking my red hair. Maybe not for not too long, because it's not that red anymore. Either way, I am also wearing an outfit that looks a little bit like Wednesday Addams. I did Morticia video a few days ago, and yes, I'm just saying that I'm much more like Wednesday personality-wise. Anyway, not that would be interesting to anyone, but okay. So, let's go back to the book. And the book that I am going to read today is A Farewell to Arms by Hemingway. When deciding on what I was going to read today, I went through all of the books that I have. I do have a lot of books, but well, regarding books that are easygoing, this is not an easygoing book, and neither this is a happy book. If you have read it, you know it. But most of the books that I have, they are either philosophical or they are completely depressing. In the video that you will never see, I spoke about Schopenhauer and a few other happy dudes. Anyway, but this time around the happy dude is Ernest Hemingway and A Farewell to Arms. I can say I like Hemingway very much. I bought this book because it was as a recommendation of books you should read in your lifetime. I saw a list like that, and I think I bought 2 or 3 books from that list. Actually, one of them is still waiting in my cart to be completed, and it is Brothers Karamazov. But yeah, I thought that I should complete the readings of the books that I have at the moment. So I read this book already because I wanted to detox from all the philosophy and psychology and all the technical books that I was reading. I find those books the most interesting to me, but I would say that they make me feel as warm as a brick. And so I read this book already. I found a few parts really interesting. For instance, when he describes the trenches. So this book is placed in time of First World War, or the Great War, and yes, so basically it is the War of Trenches, and I thought there is a chapter here where he describes in very good detail, I would say, the trenches. And of course there are many writers that do that and have done that throughout the years, but I thought that his description was really good. In a way that he was quite detailed, and I thought that it was a very personal, I mean, he was in war. I think that the main character from this book is based on him, so it makes sense that he described the situation in such a personal way. But either way, let's not prolong this any longer. I will read a part of the book that I found quite uplifting and very easygoing. Again, just as a change from the video that you will never see. Perhaps I one day will create a Patreon, and maybe, who knows, maybe I will post parts of that video there. Perhaps. Alright. So, let's just start with the reading. I am using a different camera as well this time around. I don't know if I'm playing fire with the universe, because it might go very badly. But I'm not going to say that I like to play the game with the universe. No, I don't like to play the game with the universe. I don't have enough energy. But anyway. So, here we go. So, this is chapter 23 from the book. And let me just start. I'm not going to place you within the book, because, I mean, if you read it, you already know. If you don't, then I don't want to spoil it for you. So let's just, I will do my best reading it, not too quickly, and try to focus as well on making it without many mistakes. English not even close to my fluent tongue. So some words may come out as, things that happen. So, chapter 23. The night I was to return to the front, I sent the porter down to hold a seat for me on the train when I came from Turin. The train was to leave at midnight. It was made up at Turin and reached Milan about 10:30 at night. It just started to rain. Wow. Maybe I will include some rain sounds in this video. Anyway, but it's raining a lot, so maybe you can hear it either way. Okay, it was made up at Turin and reached Milan about 10:30 at night and lay in the station until time to leave. You had to be there when it came in to get a seat. The porter took a friend with him, a machine gunner on leave, who worked in a tailor shop, and was sure that between them they could hold a place. I gave them money for platform tickets and had them take my baggage. There was a big rucksack and two mussets. I don't know what it is. Anyway, I said goodbye at the hospital at about 5 o'clock and went out. The porter had my baggage in his lounge, and I told him I would be at the station a little before midnight. His wife called me Signorino and cried. She wiped her eyes and shook hands and then cried again. I patted her on the back and she cried once more. She had done my mending and was a very short, dumpy, happy-faced woman with white hair. When she cried, her whole face went to pieces. I went down to the corner where there was a wine shop and waited inside, looking out the window. It was dark outside and cold and misty. I paid for my coffee and grappa, and I watched the people going by the light from the window. I saw Catherine and knocked on the window. She looked, saw me, and smiled. And I went out to meet her. She was wearing a dark blue cape and a soft felt hat. We walked along together, along the sidewalk past the wine shops, then across the market square and up the street, and through the archway to the cathedral square. There were streetcar tracks, and beyond them was the cathedral. It was white and wet in the mist. We crossed the tram tracks. On our left were the shops, their windows lighted, and the entrance to the galleria. There was a fog in the square, and when we came close to the front of the cathedral, it was very big and the stone was wet. "Would you like to go in?" "No," Catherine said. We walked along. There was a soldier standing with his girl in the shadow of one of the stone buttresses ahead of us, and we passed them. They were standing tied up against the stone, and he had put his cape around her. They are like us, I said. Nobody is like us, Catherine said. She did not mean it happily. I wish they had some place to go. It might not do them any good. I don't know. Everybody ought to have some place to go. They have the cathedral, Catherine said. We were past it now. We crossed the far end of the square and looked back at the cathedral. It was fine in the mist. We were standing in front of the leather goods shop. There were riding boots, a rucksack, and ski boots in the window. Each article was set apart as an exhibit. The rucksack in the center, the riding boots on one side, and the ski boots on the other. The leather was dark and oiled, smooth and as a used saddle. The electric light made highlights on it, dull oiled leather. We'll ski sometime. In 2 months there will be skiing in Murin, Catherine said. Let's go there. All right, she said. We went on past the windows and turned down a side street. I've never been this way. This is the way I go to the hospital, I said. It was a narrow street and we kept on the right-hand side. There were many people passing in the fog. There were shops and all the windows were lighted. We looked in the window at the pile of the cheeses. As in cheese. I stopped in front of an armorer's shop. Come in a minute. I have to buy a gun. What sort of gun? A pistol. We went in and I unbuttoned my belt and laid it with the empty holster on the counter. 2 women were behind the counter. The women brought out several pistols. It must fit this, I said, opening the holster. It was a grey leather holster and I had bought it second-hand to wear it in the town. Have they good pistols? Catherine asked. They are all about the same. Can I try this one? I asked the woman. I have no place to shoot, she said, but it is very good. You will not make a mistake with it. I snapped and pulled back the action. The spring was rather strong, but it worked smoothly. I sighted it and snapped it again. It is used, the woman said. It belonged to an officer who was an excellent shot. Did you sell it to him? Yes. How did you get it back? From his orderly. Maybe you have mine. I said, how much is this? 50 lire. It is very cheap. All right, I want 2 extra clips and a box of cartridges. She brought them from under the counter. Have you any need for a sword? She asked. I have some used swords, very cheap. I'm going to the front, I said. Oh yes, then you won't need a sword, she said. I paid for the cartridges and the pistol, filled the magazine and put it in the place, put the pistol in my empty holster, filled the extra clips with cartridges, and put them in the leather slots on the holster, and then buckled on my belt. The pistol felt heavy on the belt. Still, I thought it was better to have a regulation pistol. You could always get shells. Now, we are fully armed, I said. That was the one thing I had to remember to do. Someone got my other one going to the hospital. I hope it's a good pistol, Catherine said. Was there anything else? The woman asked. I don't believe so. The pistol has a lanyard, she said, so I noticed. The woman wanted to sell something else. You don't need a whistle. I don't believe so. The woman said goodbye, and we went out on the sidewalk. Catherine looked in the window. The woman looked out and bowed to us. What are those little mirrors set in wood for? They are for attracting birds. They twirl them in the field, and larks see them and come out, and the Italians shoot them. They are an ingenious people, Catherine said. You don't shoot larks, do you, darling, in America? Not especially. We crossed the street and started to walk up the other side. I feel better now, Catherine said. I felt terrible when we started. We always feel good when we are together. We will always be together. Yes, except that I'm going away at midnight. Don't think about it, darling. We walked on up the street. The fog made the lights yellow. Aren't you tired? Catherine said. How about you? I'm all right. It's fun to walk. But let's not do it for too long. No. We turned down a side street where there were no lights and walked in the street. I stopped and kissed Catherine. While I kissed her, I felt her hand on my shoulder. She had pulled my cape around her, so it covered both of us. We were standing in the street against a high wall. Let's go someplace, I said. Good, said Catherine. We walked on along a street until it came out onto a wider street that was beside a canal. On the other side was a brick wall and buildings. Ahead, down the street, I saw a streetcar across a bridge. We can grab a cab up until the bridge, I said. We stood on the bridge in the fog waiting for a carriage. Several streetcars passed, full of people going home. When a carriage came along, but there was someone in it. The fog was turning into rain. We could walk or take a tram, Catherine said. One will be along, I said. They go by here. Here one comes, she said. The driver stopped his horse and lowered the metal sign on his meter. The top of the carriage was up, and there were drops of water on the driver's coat. His varnished hat was shining in the wet. We sat back in the seat together, and the top of the carriage made it dark. Where did you tell him to go? To the station. There's a hotel across from the station where we can go. We can go the way we are, without luggage?" "Yes," I said. It was a long ride to the station, up side streets in the rain. "Won't we have dinner?" Catherine asked. "I'm afraid I'll be hungry." "We'll have it in our room." "I haven't anything to wear. I haven't even a nightgown." "We'll get one," I said, and called to the driver. "Go to Via Manzoni and up that." He nodded and turned off to the left at the next corner. On the big street, Catherine watched for a shop. "Here's a place," she said. I stopped the driver and Catherine got out, walked across the sidewalk and went inside. I sat back in the carriage and waited for her. It was raining and I could smell the wet street and the horse steaming in the rain. She came back with a package and got in, and we drove on. "I was very extravagant, darling," she said, "but it's fine. It is a fine nightgown." At the hotel, I asked Catherine to wait in the carriage while I went in and spoke to the manager. There were plenty of rooms. Then I went out to the carriage, paid the driver, and Catherine and I walked in together. The small boy in buttons carried the package. The manager bowed us toward the elevator. There was much red plush and brass. The manager went up in the elevator with us. Monsieur and Madame wish dinner in their rooms. "Yes, will you have the menu brought up?" I said. "You wish something special for dinner? Some game or a souffle?" The elevator passed 3 floors with a click each time, then clicked and stopped. "What have you as game?" "I could get a pheasant, or woodcock." Different times people ate. I think both of those are a type of a bird. "A woodcock," I said. We walked down the corridor. The carpet was worn. There were many doors. The manager stopped and unlocked a door and opened it. "Here you are, a lovely room." The small boy in buttons put the baggage on the table in the center of the room. The manager opened the curtains. "It is foggy outside," he said. The room was furnished in red plush. There were many mirrors, 2 chairs, and a large bed with a satin coverlet. A door led to a bathroom. "I will send up the menu," the manager said. He bowed and went out. I went to the window and looked out, then pulled a cord that shut the thick plush curtains. Catherine was sitting on the bed, looking at the cut glass chandelier. She had taken her hat off, and her hair shone under the light. She saw herself in one of the mirrors and put her hands on her hair. I saw her in 3 other mirrors. She did not look happy. She let her cape fall on the bed. "What's the matter, darling?" "I never felt like a whore before," she said. I went over to the window and pulled the curtain aside and looked out. I had not thought it would be like this. "You are not a whore." "I know it, darling, but it isn't nice to feel like one." Her voice was dry and flat. "This was the best hotel we could get in," I said. I looked out in the window, across the square were the lights of the station. There were carriages going on the street, and I saw the trees in the park. The lights from the hotel shone on the wet pavement. Oh hell, I thought, do we have to argue now? Come over here, please, Catherine said. The flatness was all gone out of her voice. Come over, please. I'm a good girl again. I looked over at the bed. She was smiling. I went over and sat on the bed beside her and kissed her. You are my good girl. I'm certainly yours, she said. After we had eaten, we felt fine. And then after we felt very happy, and in a little time the room felt like our own home. My room at the hospital had been our own home, and this room was our home too, in the same way. Catherine wore my tunic over her shoulders while we ate. We were very hungry, and the meal was good. And we drank a bottle of Capri and a bottle of Saint Estephen. I drank most of it, but Catherine drank some, and it made her feel splendid. For dinner, we had woodcock with some soufflé potatoes and purée de marron, a salad, and zabayone for dessert. It's a fine room, Catherine said. It's a lovely room. We should have stayed here all the time we have been in Milan. It's a funny room, but it's nice. Vice is a wonderful thing, Catherine said. The people who go in for it seem to have good taste about it. The red blush is really fine. It's just the thing, and the mirrors are very attractive. You are a lovely girl. I know how a room like this would be for waking up in the morning, but it's really a splendid room. I poured another glass of Saint Estephen. I wish we could do something really sinful, Catherine said. Everything we do seems so innocent and simple. I can't believe we do anything wrong. You are a grand girl. I only feel hungry. I get terribly hungry. You are a fine, simple girl, I said. I am a simple girl. No one ever understood it except you. Once when I first met you, I spent an afternoon thinking how we would go to a hotel Cavour together, and how would it be. That was awfully cheeky of you. This isn't the Cavour, is it? No, they wouldn't have taken us there. They'll take us in some time. But that's how we differ, darling. I never thought about anything. Didn't you ever at all? A little, she said. You are a lovely girl. I poured another glass of wine. I am a very simple girl, Catherine said. I didn't think so at first. I thought you were a crazy girl. I was a little crazy, but I wasn't crazy in my complicated manner. I didn't confuse you, did I, darling? Wine is a grand thing, I said. It makes you forget all the bad. It's lovely, Catherine said, but it's given my father gout very badly. Have you a father? Yes, said Catherine. He has gout. You won't even have to meet him. Haven't you a father? No, I said. A stepfather. Will I like him? You won't have to meet him. We have such a fine time, Catherine. Catherine said. I don't take any interest in anything else anymore. I'm so very happy married to you. The waiter came and took away the things. After a while we were very still and we could hear the rain. Down below on the street a motor car honked. But at my back I always hear Time's winged chariot hurrying near. I said. I know that poem, Catherine said. It's by Marvell, but it's about a girl who wouldn't leave with a man. My head felt very clear and cold, and I wanted to talk facts. Where will you have the baby? I don't know. The best place I can find. How will you arrange it? The best way I can. Don't worry, darling. We may have several babies before the war is over. It's nearly time to go. I know. You can make it in time if you want. No, then don't worry, darling. You were fine until now, and now you are worrying. I won't. How often will you write? Every day. Do they read your letters? They can't read English enough to hurt any. I'll make them very confusing, Catherine said. But not too confusing. I'll just make them a little confusing then. I'm afraid we have to start to go. All right, darling. I hate to leave our fine house. So do I. But we have to go. All right. But we are never settled in our home very long. We will be. I'll have a fine home for you when you come back. Maybe I'll be back right away. Perhaps you'll be hurt just a little in the foot, or the lobe of the ear. No, I want your ears the way they are, and not my feet. Your feet have been hit already. We have to go, darling, really. All right, you go then. All right. So, that was chapter 23. As you may have noticed from the story, the main character was injured in the war. And he is placed in Italy. He was there traveling before the war started. And then now he is at war. He meets this girl from England, Catherine, and so they fall in love and have their relationship developing during this time. And he was injured. He was staying in the hospital for a very long time. She took care of him, and so their relationship developed, and now he has healed basically, and he has to go back to war. So these are the chapters that I wanted to read to you, because I thought that they showed the relationship quite well. He is very short-worded. He doesn't speak a lot. He always tells that she's a very good girl. She seems to be a very calm person as well. I wouldn't say it's the most magical relationship ever, but it started in a natural way. When it wasn't, that grand type of meeting, like I was on a train and I don't know, so saw a side knuckle of her ankle and fell in love. Stuff like that. No. It was a simple meeting, they started to talk, and from there, their relationship developed. And so for me, it's a little bit more realistic, I guess. He drinks a lot, which is, anyway, well, it is what it is. Yeah. So, yes. This is them parting ways. So I'll read the next chapter as well, and then that'll be it. I hope it's not too impersonal. I understand that I'm reading, focusing on the book. But you can listen to the book instead of looking at me. So this time around, the visual itself is not, may not be the most captivating, but that's the book reading part, right? So. Alright, you go first. We walked down the stairs instead of taking the elevator. The carpet on the stairs was worn. I had paid for the dinner when it came up, and the waiter who had brought it was sitting on the chair near the door. He jumped up and bowed, and I went with him into the side room and paid the bill for the rooms. The manager had remembered me as a friend and refused payment in advance, but when he retired he had remembered to have the waiter stationed at the door so that I should not get out without paying. I suppose that had happened even with his friends. One had so many friends in a war. I asked the waiter to get us a carriage, and he took Catherine's package and I was carrying, and went out with an umbrella. Outside, through the window, we saw him crossing the street in the rain. We stood in the side room and looked out the window. How do you feel, Cat? Sleepy. I feel hollow and hungry. Have you anything to eat? Yes, in my musette. I saw the carriage coming. It stopped, and the horse's head hanging in the rain. And the waiter stepped out, opened his umbrella, and came toward the hotel. We met him at the door, and walked out under the umbrella down the wet walk to the carriage at the curb. Water was running in the gutter. There is your package on the seat, the waiter said. He stood with the umbrella until we were in, and I had tipped him. Many thanks. Pleasant journey, he said. The coachman lifted the reins, and the horse started. The waiter turned away under the umbrella and went toward the hotel. We drove down the street and turned to the left, then came around to the right in front of the station. There were two carabinieri standing under the light just out of the rain. The light shone on their hats. The rain was clear and transparent against the light from the station. A porter came out from under the shelter of the station. his shoulders up against the rain. "No," I said. "Thanks, I don't need thee." He went back under the shelter of the archway. I turned to Catherine. Her face was in the shadow from the hood of the carriage. We might as well say goodbye. I can't go in. No. Goodbye, Cat. Will you tell him the hospital? Yes. I told the driver the address to drive to. He nodded. Goodbye, I said. Take good care of yourself and young Catherine. Goodbye, darling. Goodbye, I said. I stepped out into the rain, and the carriage started. Catherine leaned out, and I saw her face in the light. She smiled and waved. The carriage went up the street. Catherine pointed toward the archway. I looked. There were only the two carabinieri and the archway. I realized she meant for me to get out of the rain. I went and stood and watched the carriage turn the corner. Then I started through the station and down the runway to the train. The porter was on the platform looking for me. I followed him into the train, crowding past people and along the aisles, crowding past peoples and along the aisle corner of the full compartment. My rucksack and muskets were above his head on the luggage rack. There were many men standing in the corridor, and the men in the compartment all looked at us when we came in. There were not enough places in the train, and everyone was hostile. The machine gunner stood up for me to sit down. It was a very tall, gaunt captain of artillery with a red scar along his jaw. He had looked through the glass on the corridor and then come in. "What do you say?" I asked. I had turned and faced him. He was taller than I, and his face was very thin under the shadow of his cap visor, and the scar was new and shiny. Everyone in the compartment was looking at me. "You can't do that," he said. "You can't have a soldier save you a place." "I have done it." He swallowed, and I saw his Adam's apple go up and then down. The machine gunner stood in from off the place. Other men looked in through the glass. No one in the compartment said anything. "You have no right to do that. I was here 2 hours before you came. What do you want? The seat? So do I." I watched his face, and I could feel the whole compartment against me. I did not blame them. He was in the right, but I wanted the seat. Still, no one said anything. "Oh, hell," I thought. "Sit down, Signor Capitano," I said. The machine gunner moved out of the way, and then tall Captain sat down. He looked at me. His face seemed hurt, but he had the seat. "Get my things," I said to the machine gunner. We went out of the corridor. The train was full, and I knew there was no chance of a place. I gave a porter and the machine gunner 10 lire apiece. They went down the corridor and outside on the platform, looking in the windows, but there were no places. "Maybe some will get off in Brescia," the porter said. "More will get on at Brescia," said the machine gunner. I said goodbye to them, and we shook hands, and they left. They both felt badly. Inside the train, we were all standing in the corridor, when the train started. I watched the lights of the station and the yards as we went out. It was still raining, and soon the windows were wet, and I could not see out anymore. Later, I slept on the floor of the corridor, first putting my pocketbook with my money and papers in it inside my shirt and trousers, so that it was inside the leg of my breeches. I slept all night, waking up at Brescia and Verona when more men got on the train, but going back to sleep at once. I had my head on one of the mussets and my arms around the other, and I could feel the pack, and they could all walk over me if they wouldn't step on me. Men were sleeping on the floor, all down the corridor. Others stood holding to the window rods or leaning against the doors. The train was always crowded. All right, so those are the 2 chapters that I wanted to read. Actually, this is the end of part 2 in the book. So, yes, it is a rather silly video, just me reading the book. But I tried my best to make some, I don't know, to make it sound a bit less like I would read it normally, a bit more, theatrical reading, although not too much, because too much theater is not my thing. Anyway, I hope you can relax with this video. Let me know what you thought of it, and I hope to see you next time.